So here we have the Sargent 1881 patented lock cartridge that a few minutes ago was stuck in this door and it wasn't working. So what I did was, in order to take it out, you basically have to do a couple things. You have to remove these two screws, and likely they're going to be covered over in paint if you have a really old house. And then the knobs that have these has a screw, a flathead usually coming in this top portion here, and then on the other side there'll also be one there. And then there's escutcheon plates that have two flathead screws, also likely covered in paint if your house is anything like mine. Once you chip all the paint away, you can hit it with a hammer a few times and cut these seams with a razor blade, and you can pull this guy right out. And when I pulled it out, there was a flathead screw right in the top, bottom, whatever it may be, the top edge there, and I just popped that right out. It's very easy to come out. Then all of a sudden, all these parts fell out. And I was like, ah, crap, what do I do? I got 20 parts here and no idea what to do with them. They were like just gently laid in there, and as soon as I opened it up, they all kind of fell out. So just be careful with that. So basically, I just figured out how all this works, and it is pretty darn ingenious. So this is the lock piece, and forgive me, I don't know any of the names of these parts. I'm just sort of making it up. This is the lock shaft, and that sort of lays in the bottom, and it's pretty obvious because it fits perfectly in the bottom hole there. Then this is the latch for the door, and depending on how it's oriented, you want to make sure that you put it in the right way. So in this case, actually I believe it was this way. Yes, actually, I believe it was this way, and you can see that it comes right out there. Okay, so now we have a couple of challenges. Namely, how do you figure out the rest of these parts? Well, here's what I figured out. I was looking for a place for this to fit, and it just so happened to fit very nicely there. That was a very obvious thing. So this is like the locking mechanism. This is the piece that, when you stick the key in through this hole down here, it will push up this little latch, which allows the locking shaft to come forward. So that's pretty ingenious. But then I'm like, well, what keeps it down? And that's when I realized this tiny little paperclippy type thing hooks right in there, and then you have to sort of push it down underneath this stump. And what you get is this mechanism that wants to stay down, which prevents the lock from moving. But if you push the lock forward, it also wants to stay down and prevents the lock from moving. So when the key comes in, it not only lifts up this piece, but it also pulls this in. So pretty cool. I'm going to leave this out for now because I don't want the I don't want the door lock to be installed because it's just a closet. I'm just going to pop this right out, and we'll get on to the rest of the parts, which are in themselves very confusing. The first thing I did, I remember that the door handle shaft was right through here, so I figure this is the piece because it's squared off, and voila, and that seems to make a lot of sense. And then this is the one that really, I couldn't figure it out. I was like, what's going on? But what I did figure out, after a little bit of tooling, it's kind of cool. It's like one of these toys that you play with, like you can get from the store, those metal puzzles. Like, alright, that seems to pull the door out, but what pushes it back in? And then I realized this does. And that's when I laid this in there. It's a little bit asymmetrical, so you have to put it in the right way. And voila. You have the mechanism to open the door, and then, oh gee, well, what's closing it? What's pushing the latch back in? And when I originally opened this thing, this spring also fell out, which is obviously what does it, but unfortunately the spring head broke. So I just pulled a little bit more of the spring out and turned it into a little loop using these needle nose pliers. bending it. And what you have to do is you have to make it so that one axis of this is vertical and the back axis is sort of 90 degrees from that angle. And why that is because there's another stump right there that you wrap the end of the spring around, and then you have to make it latch onto this little hook. I mean, look at this little beautiful piece. So this little hook right here was for the end of the spring. So what you do is, I'll do this for the video, but you just hook that on there, and then you make sure it's on the stump inside of the front of the piece. You can do them both at the same time. Then you push it against the back of the latch, and you grab the top of it and you pull it out and you wrap it against that top stump, and all of a sudden everything sort of just falls into place. And that looks a lot like how a door should operate. And you turn this thing, well, you do it with your door handle, and all of a sudden it opens like a door, no matter which way you do it, and everything falls apart. But you get the gist. Let me reset this real quick. Oh, well, look at that. The other part of the spring broke off. Well, isn't that fun? Now I can show you how to do that. So I just grabbed, this spring obviously is not going to last too much longer. I just grabbed the end of the spring with a pliers and grab it like sort of, it's good to have needle nose pliers because they sort of, they taper larger as you go. I'm going to grab it at a point that I think is large enough to handle the size of that pin right there. And sort of grabbed it, grab it away here, and then I just sort of wrapped it around the end of the needle nose pliers enough to get, and there's more of it breaking off. This spring is definitely seen better days. So I'm wrapping it around the edge of the, oh boy, it's tough, the edge of the needle nose pliers. Keeps breaking off, so I'm having to make new pieces here. Pull it really hard. There we go. Okay. Give it a good squeeze, and then make sure it's sort of centered vertically, and that it's 90 degrees angled from the bottom one. It's not perfect, but it'll probably do. And I'm going to open it up, make sure it's big enough that it will accommodate a little stump there. And then let's install it again. Push this on here. There we go. Got it good and round now. Okay, so where's my locking latch? Let's try it this way. Okay, you can see very clearly there. Pull this out. And it's important that you get the end of the latch in between this piece and this piece so that it works in both directions. And once it's set in there, it's a little sensitive, but as soon as that top case goes on, you basically should have a working door latch. So go. Let's put in the top case screw. It's real nice and snug. That's good. And then let's try for this. Solid performance, as long as that spring doesn't break. The rest is history. Just go ahead and throw it back in here. Again, it's a pretty simple system. And just give it a couple hammers and some screws, and you'll be good to go. And that is the model number here. Sargent and Company, which actually is still a company to this day. And this is patent number, patent number June 23rd, or perhaps 28, 1881, and January 28th, 1886, maybe? Hard to read. So there you go. Good luck. Escutcheon plates. I believe that's what they're called. Oh no, you know, the escutcheon plate might be the lock hole. Not sure. These couple of washers went on the back of the